And Lewis, should Tower Hamlets be getting worried?
This is totally appropriate. The Danish government accused of racism over plans to break up ghettos of quote-unquote non-Western immigrant communities in bid to boost integration in cities. And this is it's a bit scary, but I understand where the thought is. First of all, it comes from Denmark, which are were the lovely, most tolerant people in the world. You know, they were even more tolerant than the Dutch people, just really tolerant.
I can never tell the difference between who's who.
Yeah, one are shorter than the other, and it says that they're going to have these in these big housing estates, which are filled with non-Western people. They're going to be destroying blocks of public housing and building new housing, which they're going to give to Western people to dehomogenize.
It's an interesting one, isn't it, Paul? Because in the wake of all this talk over the last few weeks of multiculturalism and the failure of and people's different definitions of multiculturalism, you have something here where people are saying, like, what do you do? And it seems like the Danish have just gone all out and like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think you have to tackle it, because multiculturalism, to the extent where it forms ghettos, is a failure of
they're
government.
Not calling it ghettos, are they? They're calling it parallel societies. Well, is what they've taken their euphemism for it.
Yeah, but I mean, it does say ghettos in here, and I know we both.
Warsaw was a parallel society.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if multiculturalism gets to the extent where there's a parallel society, if not a ghetto, then it's a failure of government. And the problem we've got, which Denmark are trying to tackle now, and it's coming everybody's way, is that the conversation is deemed racist. So if we question multiculturalism in any way, then you're just called Enoch Powell, who, by the way, rather frighteningly, has made his speech seem to be coming true to some extent. So we have to be able to tackle it. So we have to be able to have the discourse. What Denmark are doing is tackling it head on, which I think is...
We don't have rivers of blood.
We don't have rivers of blood, no, and I'm not suggesting that we do. What I am suggesting is that Enoch Powell suggested that multiculturalism would have a detriment to our society, and there are sparks of evidence that that's the case.
Sparks, but also there's lots of counter evidence. But look,
I don't disagree with you.
But Lewis, this is interesting as well for a few reasons. One is because you are seeing a policy that is, you're looking really scared that I'm going to ask you something quite insightful.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're using this term non-Westerners and stuff, but actually it seems like the criteria that they're also really trying to go for are unemployment levels, overcrowding, crime rates. When you talk about the inequality within those areas, that seems like a very valid reason to try and solve them. The other thing that they're doing is, and this is the way that migration has worked across time, and I'm generalising massively here, but a migrant population moves in, they're poor, they work hard, they then move out to more affluent areas, and a new migration. If you look at places like in London, like we were saying, Tower Hamlets, you look at Brick Lane, it was a Jewish area, they came over, poor farmers, worked hard, and now living in various parts of the UK and in North London and whatever. And the interesting thing is the examples that they use here of, like, for example, Mohammed Aslam or whatever, and he talks about his kids. Well, he's being moved, but his kids are a doctor, a lawyer, a civil engineer and a social worker, and none of them are living within that area. So in a way, it does work. They have come over, they assimilated, and they are now doing very well and contributing to that society. And he's the one who's somewhat being left behind. And they also give an our example as well. So
what this sounds like, it sounds like a real estate scheme. Okay. It sounds like a way for them to not cleanse the area of people, but just tear down the buildings and build new buildings. I remember this in New York, in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, where I grew up. And this is what they did. I think it's just because they want to cleanse the area of...
Oh, my gosh.
No, cleanse the...
Physically cleanse?
Physically cleanse.
Okay. Well, you know what? I want to apologise because I just waffled on for about 2 minutes of that story. I think it's a really fascinating one, and maybe we'll come back to it in different ways in the future.